Chief Executive of the British Red Cross, said that they were responding to a humanitarian crisis in our hospitals and ambulance services across the country. On Monday this week, the British Medical Association said patients are suffering as the NHS reaches breaking point as a result of years of underfunding. The government wants a world-class health service while putting in only a third-class financial settlement. They continued, Mr. Mayor, to say, as a result, the NHS is failing too many people and leaving patients belittled and bewildered as medical staff try to deal with overstretched systems. The government speaks of new investment, but in the same breath asks us to make £3 of efficiency savings for every £1 spent. In the name of safety, quality, austerity and savage cuts have to stop. The chair of the BMA ended by saying, the government's policy is deliberate and it does need to be challenged. I highlight these views of professionals and key members of the medical community to show the backdrop that Orsett Hospital is being closed under. There are 4 sites earmarked for new health centres. It's fantastic that residents will be able to access services closer to home. That goes without saying that these will be welcomed by everybody. What these health centres are, however, are plans, very early steps. No contract signs, no plans, designs, and they will need to be built conducive to many other elements. What will residents do when the hospital closes and these are unlikely to be built in time? Where will they get the help that's needed? Travel to Basildon, Southend, or even further? Do not try to fool councillors or, importantly, our residents that this will be a like-for-like service. Our hospital isn't being closed for the betterment of patients. It's being closed because of a chronic lack of funding. I repeat the BMA Chair's quote, the government speaks of new investment, but in the same breath asks us to make £3 of efficiency savings for every £1 spent. It's not right to use spin to take away a service, provide a different, lesser one, and sell it as better. Thurrock residents aren't fools. I urge councillors to oppose the closure of Orsett Hospital because of the valuable services delivered to Thurrock residents, and urge council to resist attempts to move any resources or capacity from Orsett Hospital out of Thurrock. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Victoria Holloway. Just before I go on, I just want to clarify that as there's an amendment to this, the process, which I know we all are very familiar with, I've just reiterated, the proposer has proposed the motion. I will soon be asking for that to be seconded. After that, we will hear the proposed, the amendment, and we'll ask for that to be seconded. Both seconders have the right to speak later if they want to. Then we'll have the debate. The debate will be about the motion. After that, then if the amendment seconder has reserved the right to speak, that person will then have the right to speak. Then the person who proposed the amendment, Councillor Halden, will then have a right to speak. Then if the person who seconded the motion has reserved the right to speak, then they will have the right to speak. And then the proposer of the motion will have the right to speak. We will then take 2 votes. The first vote will be on the amendment. And if that is carried, that will become the substantive motion, and we will then vote for that. If the amendment fails, then the original motion is what we'll then vote on next. I'm sure that's quite clear. Having said that, I'll now ask if there is a seconder for this motion. Councillor Gerrish.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will second that motion.
Do you reserve your right to speak?
Yes, please. I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. So we've tabled for us an amendment. I will now invite the proposer of the amendment, Councillor Halden, to make that proposal. Councillor Halden.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to try and keep this debate on what it should be, which is local provision here in Thurrock. But just to address the points made by the former speaker, anyone who can suggest that the NHS, the 5th biggest employer on the planet, dwarfed only by the Chinese and American military, is in a humanitarian crisis, that is ridiculous. We have seen from the public health report, it is a fact, that there is funding in the NHS that is in so many cases in the wrong areas. The NHS needs to be funded properly, but it also needs to spend its money properly. But let's keep this debate on the local context. And let's be very clear, Orsett Hospital is owned directly by Basildon Hospital. There will soon be a consultation via the CCG, because that's how the law works. The CCG has the right to conduct the consultation on its future. I'm of the opinion that it is best, where possible, to co-locate acute and primary care so that patients can get the most seamless care available. Now, what my officers have successfully achieved is uniting all the health partners around high-level principles. Basildon Hospital, the CCG, NELFT, SEPT and Thurrock Council have all agreed to the following things. That subject to any consultation outcomes, that no changes should happen at Orsett until brand new facilities are built. No clinical services should leave the borough of Thurrock. They should all be migrated into modern, purpose-built buildings. Yes, we are going to construct 4 integrated medical centres, and that is a great thing for the borough. What we have the prospect of doing is migrating all the services that are currently in Orsett and putting them in modern buildings and co-locating them with GP. No loss of service, an upgrade of service. Orsett has served the borough well, but it is an old building, it is a centralised building. If you can simply take those services and put them in modern, brand new buildings and put them in primary care, that makes sense. I've said it so many times, we need to talk about outcomes for patients, not buildings. We need to talk about medical care, not budgets. We need to talk about how services are going to be given to our constituents, not simply say, I want to defend the current territory regardless. The fact of the matter is, primary care in the borough is not good enough. We need better medical services, we need more medical services. If our stance is simply, we'll defend precisely what we've got and oppose any notion of change, then we'll get 10 years down the line, Orsett Hospital will be 10 years older, no new services will have come, and we will simply be defending ever-shrinking ground beneath our feet. This is a consultation. I urge all members to respond to the consultation, but we should be proud that the sheer complexity of uniting all those different health bodies around a set of principles, keeping all the services in the borough, building new facilities, that is a great, great thing that is very important. And finally, Mr Mayor, I would say that Councillor Snell chairs the Health Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I've spoken to the Managing Director at Basildon Hospital. He is attending Health Overview and Scrutiny on the 3rd of July. He is more than happy to talk to this subject if Councillor Snell were to ask him to. I am more than happy to attend as portfolio holder if Councillor Snell were to request me to, and members can scrutinise it. There is already a plan on the agenda that for the committee that you're a member of, Councillor Holloway, showing how we're going to build the first of the medical centres in the borough, and Cabinet will see that in July.
Thank you, Councillor Holden. Is that amendment seconded?
I'd like to second that, Mr Mayor, and I reserve my right to speak.
Thank you. We are now going to move into debate. Does anybody wish to debate? Councillor Snell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Holden, for that little speech there. Absolutely. I mean, you are quite often seen at the committee anyway, which is as it should be. And I think Councillor Howden is absolutely right in this one. We're often being told that we need to do bold things for the future of Thurrock and we need to move the borough along. And I know there's a strong attachment to Orsett Hospital. I know a lot of people are very worried about its future. And again, it's also true that the plans for these new health centres have been around for a long time now and not a lot's been moved forward. However, that is changing. Plans are moving forward and now you can almost see the light at the end of the tunnel for the first one of these to be brought into reality. It's still going to be difficult. People still need convincing. I think that it is right to say that we don't want to lose any services out of hospital, Orsett Hospital, until such time as the service, the provision is re-provided elsewhere in brand new modern facilities that I'm sure people will like, but they need to see them first before Orsett Hospital is actually closed down. And I think this is what this intends. So with that, I think I'll be able to support the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak? No? I'll invite Councillor Clayton.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Obviously, I will be supporting the amendment as written, pretty much for the exact same reasons Councillor Snell's just stood up and said. Unbelievable. The very second the NHS is mentioned, suddenly the Labour Party will weaponise it instantly and try and tell us of all the negative things that they see and other people have reported. They always forget to mention largely heavy spend on the NHS. Always forget to mention that there's been an increase in nurses and doctors. They always forget to mention the inappropriate use of the NHS when money is wasted, not only internally, but as mentioned before, 80% of those people turning up at A&E don't actually require A&E, they require other services within the community. And surprise, surprise, what Councillor Hall is actually suggesting, and what we're actually going to start delivering, is the way forward. And I'm going to, again, re-echo what Councillor Snell said. Our residents need convincing. I can assure you they are not fools. They're not fools by any stretch. What they want is a nice, future-proof, accessible services that's local to their community, that supplies the services they need when they need it. Not having to trudge up to a place where it's nearly impossible to park, where you have to get an appointment, and if you're lucky, it remains open in a place which, quite frankly, is no longer fit for purpose. As with everything, times change. The NHS is different to how it was back in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s and the 80s. Would I want to see a Thurrock Hospital? Yes. Surprisingly enough, we were all hoping for that a good number of years ago. Surprise, surprise, who put the kibosh on it? The Labour government under Tony Blair. Well, I'm really going to support this. I hope everybody else supports this, because we do need to see change in the NHS, and we do need to see it now, and residents need to be convinced that what we're doing is the right thing to move the NHS forward into the 21st and 20th century. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor May.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, when I saw this motion, I really believe that Councillor Holloway may have some inside information which would justify the existence of a motion, but I have to say, during her speech, she's presented absolutely nothing to justify the existence of this motion. I have to say, it is probably one of the most ill-founded and knee-jerk motions that we've seen for a long time. It's not the kind of motion that we're used to, or the kind of contribution that we're used to Councillor Holloway giving. Members have been very clear. We won't accept anything less than what's on offer at Orsett Hospital now. In fact, we expect to see improvements. And it is beyond me that any member of this chamber could possibly cling to this idea of saving Orsett Hospital, an outdated building, before we even know what's on offer. If to denounce your colours to the mast and say no closure of Orsett Hospital, when there might actually be much better services on offer at this early stage, is nonsensical. And I know that Councillor Holloway has moved her motion with the best of intentions, and I'd actually invite her to withdraw her motion and back the amended motion, because quite frankly it is common sense, and we'll be united in what we're calling for, rather than doggedly defending and holding dear to a building which quite frankly is struggling, in my opinion, to meet residents' expectations now, and in the future with a growing population, it quite frankly will be well and truly past its sell-by date. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. In the absence of any other member wishing to speak, I'll now invite Councillor Hebb as the seconder in the amended motion. Councillor Hebb.
Don't worry, I'm being confused as well, Councillor Oshie. So, the one thing that Councillor Glenn did mention, just in regards to the narrative which Councillor Holloway rather disappointingly come out in terms of the NHS and where we are with the current government, is that for every £3 that she lauds us for reducing funds, let's not forget that actually it was every pound, we were borrowing £4 under Labour in the first place. There was a massive deficit, we had to resolve that. Now, I think this tonight has become quite shallow. Actually, I think this motion is beneath the proposer. We're used to seeing better things, in my opinion, and I think it's absolutely wrong to sensationalise what could be so sensational, especially when the minutiae aren't confirmed. I think we need to be clear on our role, Mr Mayor. We are not the decision makers. Going back to Councillor Howell and Councillor Snell's point around the use of overview scrutiny, and using that as the appropriate mechanism to interview, challenge the leadership and governance group of BTUH and the CCG, is the absolutely right mechanism to do that, because it articulates it in the correct way. we'll do better being critical to them but constructive at the same time. I think it's important that we engage on the principle of what this is all about, that we build on points of agreement. I think the underruling narrative of this piece tonight is that the red line from this authority, doesn't matter what political badge you wear, the red line from this authority tonight is no reduction in the clinical offer alternative. That's what we want to establish, and that's the red line that I think we're seeking to define. And then we go back to a subject that we talked about with children's centres. I'm a parent, a lot of us are parents or grandparents, or we have godchildren, and younger people in our lives and families. I said it then, and I'll say it again. I do not mind where my daughter Lucy goes if she's poorly, if it's giving her the right clinical offer, whether it's making sure she gets the right care and attention. To be frank, driving to Orsett, or if I wasn't a driver and having to commute to Orsett, I can't get a train there, let's be honest with you. The bus system isn't particularly helpful in terms of getting there. So actually the thought of having more local services in our local domains is something which doesn't excite me, is the wrong word, you'll forgive me, but it's something which actually piques my interest, because it means that I've got somewhere close to home for Lucy, and that's what matters most to me. It would be wrong to predetermine any outcome of any consultation which is going to happen. I think, Councillor Holden, you're absolutely right. I'm proud to second this. We have to engage, we have to set a red line, and I think common sense is hopefully going to prevail tonight, and we will do that with the alternative recommendation, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for the very precise timing of that. Thank you. Councillor, so just get some papers in order. Councillor Housen. Do you wish to sum up your amendments?
Move the amendments, Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Gerrish, do you wish to?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I do. I'd like to thank Councillor Holloway for bringing this motion today, because Orsett Hospital, of course, is home to the minor injuries unit, but it also delivers a wide range of other services across 25 departments, including cardiology, neurology, pain management. And I think we all know, and we've heard tonight, that the services delivered are important to Thurrock residents. They're also important to the health service more generally. Basildon Hospital, for example, advises patients to attend Orsett rather than coming to the A&E in Basildon because of the strain on the A&E services there. And the motion, I think, is clear. We should stand opposed to any loss of services that are currently delivered by Orsett Hospital. In particular, they shouldn't be removed by Thurrock. We believe that the Council should stand united against health service cuts, but it is also, Mr. Mayor, remarkable how little of this debate has been in the public domain to date. At this point, we've had no public guarantee of how many services will be retained, no public guarantee on the future size, shape or location of the minor injuries unit or those other services, no public announcement on where services might be delivered in future, no public indication of when any alternative accommodation for services might be up and running. In fact, the memorandum in the portfolio holders report this evening will be the first time that many residents will have heard of the fact that this is being discussed in detail. It's therefore, I think, with some justification that we are not satisfied that appropriate guarantees on future service continuity are in place. If we end up in a situation where Orsett Hospital has been removed and it was still years before alternative provision could be built, if at all, that would be a disaster for Thurrock. And with respect in this regard, a memorandum of understanding is not sufficient. We need clarity, certainty, and we need scrutiny of any plans in public. Now, some would argue and have argued that the time to make this argument is later, when more of the plan for Orsett Hospital is clear and in the public domain. I would argue, actually, Mr. Mayor, the opposite. It's precisely now, when those plans are being formed, when we have the opportunity to influence, that we must make our position clear. And I believe there is some element of agreement tonight that is no loss of any resources or capacity from Orsett Hospital out of Thurrock. Mr. Mayor, I think the motion and its amendment are in a very similar spirit. In fact, I don't think there's a huge amount of degree of difference between the two. My own preference is for the original motion, purely from the point of view that it references the movement of any resources out of Thurrock, as opposed to purely the clinical resources. I'm very interested in making sure that all of those revenue budgets are protected in whatever form they are delivered in future. But Mr. Mayor, in any case, the services at Orsett Hospital are unique and are important to Thurrock. We need to make sure that we safeguard them. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping
Home.
Thank you. Councillor Victoria Holloway, do you want to sum up?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to again reiterate as to why this is happening and why I have put this motion forward is to bring forward why this is actually happening. I'm not convinced, as amazing as Councillor Howden believes he is, that he's able to pull off these health centres before Orsett Hospital closes, and I don't believe that residents will believe it either. That said, I just want to reiterate my previous comments that new health centres do not make it okay to close a hospital which provides valuable services and replace it with a question mark, many of which Councillor Gerrish has highlighted. Health centres should be built, but alongside a successful, well-funded hospital, not instead of. Councillors remarked with regards to the building itself. As I've reiterated, it's because of a chronic lack of funding, not because of decisions made for the patient's interest. Decisions are continually being made to save money instead of providing the best service. Just this week, it was reported that the government was pushing forward with plans to sell off NHS staffing agency that employs more than 90,000 people, saving the health service £70 million a year. Decisions are being made because of money and not patients, and to try and spin that as anything else is not looking after Thurrock residents. I think we should support our residents and support our NHS and support our hospitals, and that's why I would be happy also to support the amended motion, because I believe that all of us councillors are in agreement that that should be protected. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We will now be voting on the amendment. Those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands.
You said you support it.
If amended, I will support it.
Thank you. All those against? The amendment is carried. The amendment is carried. We'll now vote in favor. The amendment now becomes a substantive motion. We'll now vote on the substantive motion. I